Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Reach coming to you here today. Over this last week, we have Money in the Bank qualifying matches for the upcoming Money in the Bank pay-per-view spectacular. One of the funnest matches to happen this whole year. This is going to be the launch of more than likely who is going to be the next WWE champion coming out of the reign of Brock Lesnar. As of right now, we've got 4 competitors. We've got The Miz, Finn Balor, Rusev, and Braun Strowman all going into the match. You can debate whether if you feel like 2 or 3 competitors are going to be added into this match. As of right now, I really think it's all locked up that Finn Balor is going to win this match. It doesn't matter who else is going to be added into this. I know that we had a big upset on SmackDown, basically with Rusev beating Daniel Bryan. A lot of people thinking that Daniel Bryan was going to come into this match, find a way to become the upcoming champion, but that was not meant to be. I don't know if basically WWE or Vince or somebody in the chain of command fears putting Daniel Bryan in some sort of a ladder match, thinking that the way that the guys compete in this match, that there's a good chance that he will come up injured. I think if you're going to put the fire behind Daniel Bryan and you want this guy to be a real competitor in WWE, he's going to be put in some situations, whether if it's last man standing matches, or matches where it's not just wrestling. I understand that maybe you don't want to risk it with this ladder, but somewhere down the line there's going to be some sort of a stipulation match where that's going to come into play. So you got to wonder where you want to put this guy on the card. I know that it came out today on the Wrestling Observer Radio that Bryan isn't really wrestling on house shows. Basically, he is just going out and doing promos with The Miz, which results in him not having a match, but him, beating up The Miz and leading him laying, and that's supposed to leave the people happy. But he's not getting to wrestle, and that's the one thing that he really wanted to do. But he is getting to wrestle on the pay-per-views as well as on SmackDown when needed. So I think they're just trying to ease him in slow. But Finn Balor, to me, I think is going to be the guy who's going to beat Brock Lesnar. When you look at his title reign, which has lasted over a year, it is going to surpass CM Punk's title reign sooner than later, especially with the fact that he's not going to be wrestling on the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. You see that he's only had 10 title defenses over that year. That's an average of wrestling less than once a month. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. And being from a kid that grew up and seeing guys like Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, we didn't get to see them all the time wrestle on the local television shows, Wrestling Challenge, Wrestling Superstars, All American Wrestling. Very rarely did we get to see him wrestle on like a Saturday night's main event or on prime time or something like that. They really made you buy those shows when he was going to wrestle a match like a pay-per-view, or go out and see a local house show where he would have a big match. They wouldn't waste those matches more often than not. They were going to make money back off of those. So seeing Brock in a stage like this where he's not on Raw each and every week, I know it really got started debated with the part-time champion back in, I believe, 2011 when The Rock came back and he ended up building himself up to the point where he was going to win the championship at the Royal Rumble in 2013, and people were saying then that they thought that was a horrible idea because the championship wasn't going to be defending on house shows between the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, and it really didn't hurt sales at all. People still went to the shows. They knew The Rock wasn't going to be there, but they still got to see John Cena. They still got to see Sheamus. They got to see all of the guys on the roster that they liked at the time, and I don't think anybody left unhappy thinking that there was no championship match. I think that it does make it better. With house shows, you got to go into it with the element of disbelief, or maybe you have to make yourself believe that anything can happen on any given night, even though title changes normally just don't happen on house shows unless you're like the luckiest man in the world to be able to be at one. Anything higher than like the Intercontinental Championship or maybe a tag title, I don't think they've ever had the world title or the WWF title ever changed on a house show. But maybe I'm just not the best historian of all time. Finn's the guy that I think is going to win this. I don't want to take anything away from Strowman, The Miz, or Rusev. I don't think it's the time for Rusev to win something like the Money in the Bank. Braun Strowman, to me, is somebody that I just don't believe that if he's going to win the championship, that he's going to win it via the Money in the Bank. I think that he is going to have some big spots in this match. I think that it will be drawn up around him to look like he is one of the baddest guys on the planet, but I just don't think that he is the guy who's going to be grabbing that briefcase at the end of the night. And The Miz, I mean, The Miz is great. The Miz is awesome. I think that him having the Money in the Bank briefcase would draw you back to when he actually did have the briefcase, of just being that dastardly heel. He was not able to recapture the Intercontinental Championship. So being able to have the Money in the Bank briefcase and be able to be carrying that around, having that in the back of your mind on SmackDown, and it looks like you'll be able to go after any championship you want this year because SmackDown and Raw guys are both competing in the same match. Maybe Miz could make an appearance where he jumps ship to Monday Night Raw. We'll have to see. Well, The Miz wants to be champion, guaranteed that. But maybe it comes into play that The Miz is so desperate to break the record of holding the Intercontinental Championship the longest. What if he cashes it in to become Intercontinental Champion? I know that there's a lot of people out there that are going to think that's the stupidest thing I've ever said in any of these videos, but think about The Miz when he does promos or when he does interviews, I guess you can say out of character. He talks about how much that belt means to him because when he was a kid, that was like the wrestling title that, a lot of the real wrestlers would wrestle for, whether if that's like Tito Santana, Mr. Perfect, guys like that, guys that could really go. Maybe they weren't the most entertaining, or they didn't have the best gimmick at the time, but I mean, they really, when they got in the ring, they held their own in a match that would keep you captivated, that you felt like you got your money's worth after you watched it, whether that's like, Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect in SummerSlam 1991, a match that honestly as a kid, I didn't understand why I liked it so much till I got older and understand really that those guys were working, and that was a really, really good match. It's probably going to go down as one of my favorite matches that I've seen of all time. But I think Balor's got this locked. As of right now, I don't know what they're doing with a lot of like the guys in tag teams are giving promos basically saying that they want a shot to be in the Money in the Bank. We've even seen Epico, or maybe it was Primo, one of those colognes, saying that they wanted to be in there, basically saying the Money in the Bank briefcase, changes history and people will remember you different. I don't know what they're doing, but honestly, I think that if you do have their own tag team Money in the Bank match, I think that'd be really, really cool. I mean, over the last year, we've seen them really pushing hard on women's wrestling, them getting their own Royal Rumble, them getting their own Money in the Bank, which they're going to be having another one this year. But to really focus on tag team wrestling, you go back to 2010 when it was first being well known that Triple H was going to be taking over and having more of a backstage role behind the business instead of just being a wrestler. Triple H at that time talked about signing guys like the Briscoes and tag teams from ROH because he said he wanted to make tag team wrestling a focus. I think that they've got close a couple of times. We're having really good tag team division on SmackDown over the last 2 years. But they've never really been able to recapture what the tag team title really meant in the 80s. I think that them getting their own tag team Money in the Bank briefcase, I think would be something that's really, really fun. I mean, hell, they even have their own Feast or Fired briefcase over in Impact Wrestling. So we can see what that does to help out WWE. Last year, the Money in the Bank was, it was won by, Baron Corbin, and he tried to cash it in right before SummerSlam against Jinder Mahal, and it didn't work out because John Cena ended up getting involved in the match. So that was pretty much gone, and Carmella held hers for almost close to a year. And the women's tag team, the women's Money in the Bank briefcase sort of carried Carmella for well over a year, just like it did for Edge the first year that he had his, and we really thought that he was going to be the main event of WrestleMania 22 because of it. So anytime you bring in anything new, I think it's going to add fun. So having a tag team one, I think, is going to be really cool. So as they add more names to the match, we'll be talking about it. And as we get closer, I'm sure we'll be talking about a lot of the other matches that are going to come out of this. I'm guessing that more than likely Kaz is going to have a match on SmackDown next week where he's going to try to get in the Money in the Bank, and then probably because of Daniel Bryan or because of something or another, he's not going to be able to be in there. So I'm looking to see a Daniel Bryan versus Kaz match. I'm guessing that Nakamura and AJ are going to have another match that I don't think anybody's going to be waiting for them to have the biggest match of all time now. I think that ship has sailed for this run in WWE. They built us up 3 times in a row, and it hasn't panned out. Roman Reigns, I honestly don't really know where he fits in if Brock Lesnar's not going to be there, and if he's not going to be in the Money in the Bank. I don't know if maybe they had him not qualify in his first attempt, and maybe they'll make him qualify right before the show to build anticipation of what is Roman going to do. But we'll see as we get closer to the show. So talk to you guys later. Peace out, everybody.